What if I told you that right now, beneath your feet, there's a conversation happening? Not between people, but between trees. And not through leaves or branches, but through an invisible underground network that scientists are calling nature's internet. Trees are talking, sharing resources, and even warning each other about danger, and they've been doing it for millions of years without us even knowing. Today, we're going underground to discover one of nature's most mind-blowing secrets. When you look at a forest, what do you see? Probably individual trees, standing alone, competing for sunlight in space, right? Well, that's what scientists thought too, until recently. Turns out, we've been completely wrong about trees. They're not isolated individuals at all. They're part of a massive, interconnected community, communicating and cooperating through a hidden network that would make the internet jealous. This underground system connects trees across entire forests, allowing them to send messages, share nutrients, and even support their sick neighbors. It's like a secret society operating right beneath our feet. And the discovery of this network has completely changed how we understand forests. The really wild part, this isn't science fiction. This is happening right now in every forest on Earth. So, how do trees talk without mouths, brains, or nervous systems? The answer lies in something called the wood wide web. And yes, that's the actual scientific term. It's a fungal network that connects tree roots, and it's about to blow your mind. Picture this. You're walking through a forest, and beneath every step you take, there are thread-like structures, thinner than human hair, stretching for miles in every direction. These threads are fungi, and they're not just decomposing dead things like most of us learned in school. They're actually forming partnerships with tree roots in a relationship that goes back 400 million years. These fungal threads are called mycorrhizae, which literally means fungus root in Greek. And here's where it gets fascinating. The fungi attach to tree roots and extend outward, connecting to other trees' roots through their fungal network. It's like trees are holding hands underground through fungal intermediaries. One study found that a single teaspoon of forest soil can contain several miles of these fungal threads. Several miles in a teaspoon. Well, it's one of nature's most perfect partnerships. The trees produce sugars through photosynthesis, stuff the fungi can't make on their own. In exchange, the fungi have an incredible ability to absorb water and nutrients from the soil, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, which they share with the trees. It's basically nature's version of a trade agreement, and both parties benefit massively. Now, this is where things get really interesting, and if you want to dive even deeper into the hidden world of nature and try some amazing experiments yourself, check the description below to download our free ebook of 50 DIY science experiments and fascinating facts. Trust me, there's some incredible stuff in there about how you can observe these natural networks in your own backyard. But back to our underground internet. These fungal networks don't just exchange nutrients. They carry information, chemical signals, warning messages. Trees are literally sending data through this biological broadband. So what are trees actually saying to each other down there? Researchers have discovered that trees can send warning signals when they're under attack. Here's how it works. Let's say a Douglas fir tree gets attacked by insects. That tree will release chemical compounds into the fungal network, kind of like sending an emergency broadcast. The neighboring trees pick up these chemical signals through their connected roots. And here's the amazing part. They respond. They start producing defensive enzymes and chemicals that make their leaves less tasty to insects, even before the insects reach them. They're essentially getting a heads up from their neighbor and preparing their defenses in advance. One scientist who's been pioneering this research is Dr. Suzanne Simard from the University of British Columbia. She's spent over 30 years studying forest communication, and her discoveries have been revolutionary. In one of her experiments, she proved that mother trees, the oldest and largest trees in the forest, are actually at the center of these networks. They're like network hubs, connected to hundreds of other trees. And get this, mother trees preferentially send more nutrients to their own offspring. Trees recognize their own kin. Let that sink in for a moment. But it's not just about family favoritism. Mother trees also support the entire community. When a mother tree is dying, it sends a massive surge of nutrients to the surrounding younger trees. Like a final act of generosity, it's passing on its resources to the next generation. Some researchers have even found that when you cut down a mother tree, the survival rate of younger trees in that area drops significantly. The mother tree wasn't just standing there, it was actively keeping the forest healthy. The nutrient sharing in these networks is honestly incredible. Trees don't just keep resources to themselves, they share. Researchers have used radioactive tracers to track the movement of carbon, nitrogen, and water through these fungal networks, and what they found was shocking. Trees growing in shady spots, who can't photosynthesize as much, receive carbon from their sunnier neighbors through the network. It's like a forest welfare system. The trees with plenty of resources help out the trees that are struggling. In one study, scientists found that up to 40% of the carbon in a shaded seedling could actually come from other trees through this underground network. Even more fascinating, different species of trees share resources with each other. You'd think they'd be competitors, but paper birch trees and Douglas firs, two completely different species, actually support each other through the seasons. In summer, when the Douglas firs are shaded by the birch leaves, the birches send them carbon. In fall, when the birches lose their leaves, the evergreen firs return the favor. It's like they're taking turns helping each other out. Nature's version of you, scratch my bark, I'll scratch yours. There's even evidence that trees can recognize distress signals from other species and respond appropriately. When a broadleaf tree is attacked by caterpillars, nearby pine trees will increase their production of defensive chemicals, even though caterpillars don't typically attack pines. They're joining in the neighborhood defense just because they picked up the warning signal. Now let's talk about the actual science mechanisms here, because this is where it gets properly nerdy in the best way. The fungi involved in these networks are mostly from groups called ectomycorrhizal and arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. These fungi form incredibly intricate connections with tree roots. In some cases, the fungal threads actually penetrate into the root cells themselves, creating an intimate exchange system at the cellular level. In other cases, they form a sheath around the roots, with threads extending into the soil. The communication happens through several channels. There are volatile organic compounds, basically airborne chemicals, that trees release when they're stressed. But the underground network uses different signals. Trees send electrical impulses through the fungal network, similar to how nerve signals work in animals, just much slower. They also use chemical signals, hormones and proteins that travel through the network and trigger responses in other trees. One study by Dr. Simard used carbon-13 and carbon-14 isotopes to track carbon movement. She injected these tracers into specific trees and then measured where they showed up. The results proved definitively that carbon was moving between trees through the fungal network, not through the soil or air. This was groundbreaking because it provided hard evidence of the resource sharing that many scientists had been skeptical about. Another researcher, Dr. Monica Gagliano, has done controversial but fascinating work suggesting that trees might even use sound to communicate. She found that plant roots make clicking sounds, and that they grow toward the source of similar clicking sounds. Now, this research is still debated in the scientific community, but it opens up incredible questions about just how sophisticated plant communication might be. The chemical signaling is particularly complex. When a tree is damaged, it can release compounds like jasmonic acid and salicylic acid into the network. These are the same compounds that trigger immune responses in plants. Other trees detect these chemicals and ramp up their own defenses. It's essentially a biochemical alarm system. Let me share some specific experiments that really drive home how real this is. In one study published in the journal Nature, researchers at the University of Aberdeen created artificial networks in the lab. They connected plants using fungal networks and then stressed some of the plants by cutting their leaves or exposing them to aphids. The connected plants showed defensive responses even though they themselves weren't being attacked. When the researchers severed the fungal connections, this protective effect disappeared. That's pretty definitive proof right there. Another incredible experiment involved planting trees with and without their fungal partners. Seedlings that were allowed to connect to the fungal network had survival rates up to 90% higher than isolated seedlings. 90%. The network wasn't just helpful, it was often the difference between life and death. There's also research showing that these networks can extend the reach of trees far beyond their own root systems. A tree's roots might extend 10 or 20 feet from its trunk, but through the fungal network, it can exchange resources with trees hundreds of feet away. The network essentially gives every tree access to a much larger area than it could reach alone. Scientists in Switzerland tracked nitrogen movement through forest networks and found that nitrogen absorbed by fungi in one part of the forest could end up in trees 50 feet away within just a few days. The speed and efficiency of this network is genuinely remarkable. And here's something that might change how you think about logging. When researchers studied clear-cut forests, they found that the fungal networks were severely damaged, sometimes taking decades to recover. But selectively logged forests, where some trees were left standing, maintained their networks. The mother trees that remained kept the network alive and helped the forest regenerate much faster. This has huge implications for how we should manage forests. Think about the internet for a second. You're connected to billions of people, sharing information instantly across the planet. Trees basically invented that concept hundreds of millions of years ago. While we've been patting ourselves on the back for creating social networks, trees have been running the original Facebook underground since before dinosaurs existed. Or think about it like a neighborhood watch program. If someone's house gets broken into, they warn the neighbors, and everyone locks their doors and turns on their security systems. Trees do exactly the same thing with insect attacks. One tree gets attacked, sends out the warning, and the whole neighborhood goes into lockdown mode. The resource sharing is like a community food bank. The trees with extra resources contribute to the system, and the trees that are struggling get help. No tree is left behind. It's cooperation on a massive scale, and it completely challenges our ideas about nature being all about competition and survival of the fittest. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine if your neighbor could literally feel when you were sick and automatically bring you medicine and food through an underground tube system connecting your houses. That's essentially what trees are doing for each other every single day. This discovery has massive implications beyond just being cool science. It changes how we need to think about forest conservation. We can't just protect individual trees, we need to protect the entire network. Cutting down one tree doesn't just remove that tree, it damages the communication system and can impact dozens or hundreds of other trees connected to it. It also means that biodiversity is even more important than we thought. Different species of fungi connect different types of trees. A diverse forest with many tree species and many fungal species has a more robust, resilient network. Monoculture forests, where only one type of tree is planted, might look green, but they're missing this crucial underground complexity. Climate change is another factor. These fungal networks help forests adapt to changing conditions by allowing trees to share resources and information more efficiently. But extreme heat, drought, and soil disturbance can damage the fungi. Protecting these networks might be crucial for helping forests survive climate change. Some foresters are already changing their practices based on this research. Instead of clear-cutting, they're doing selective harvesting that preserves mother trees and keeps the fungal network intact. Early results show that forests managed this way regenerate faster and healthier. Even with everything we've learned, we're still just scratching the surface. Scientists estimate we've identified maybe 10% of fungal species on Earth. There could be entire types of communication happening that we haven't discovered yet. Some researchers are asking wild questions now. Can trees think? Obviously not in the way we do, but they process information, make decisions about where to send resources, and remember past threats. What even is intelligence when you get down to that level? Do trees have something we might call awareness, even without brains? These are questions that philosophers and scientists are genuinely debating now. There's also research into whether we can harness these networks for agriculture. Could we use fungal networks to make crops more resilient, to help them share water during droughts, or warn each other about pests? Some farmers are already experimenting with this, reducing fertilizer use by relying more on mycorrhizal fungi. The more we study these networks, the more complex they turn out to be. Every answer leads to 10 new questions. How do trees decide where to send resources? Can they distinguish between signals from different species? How much information can they store and transmit? We're basically discovering an alien intelligence right here on Earth, one that's been operating invisibly all along. So the next time you walk through a forest, remember this: you're not just walking among trees, you're walking above a vast ancient communication network that spans the entire forest. Beneath your feet, trees are talking, sharing, cooperating, and supporting each other in ways that we've only recently begun to understand. Trees aren't the silent, solitary organisms we once thought. They're members of an incredibly sophisticated community, connected by the Wood Wide Web, sharing resources with their neighbors, warning each other about danger, and even recognizing their own offspring. They've been quietly running one of nature's most complex social networks since long before humans ever walked the earth. This discovery is more than just fascinating science. It's a reminder that nature is far more interconnected and intelligent than we often give it credit for. It challenges us to rethink how we treat forests, how we log, how we conserve, and how we understand the living world around us. So look at trees differently now. Every forest is a community. Every tree is connected. And beneath the soil, right beneath your feet, there's an entire hidden world of conversation and cooperation that's been happening all along, just waiting for us to discover it. The Wood Wide Web is real. It's extraordinary, and it's one of nature's most beautiful secrets. Now you know what's really going on down there. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Thanks for watching. If this video changed how you see forests, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible science content, and share this with someone who needs to know that trees are way cooler than they thought. And don't forget to check the description for resources to learn more about this fascinating topic. See you in the next video, where we'll explore more hidden wonders of the natural world.